I'm not sure exactly how to describe the anatomy of church and state, but by golly, we are going to try.
We're going to try.
Jeremiah Campa is with us. Aquarian Anarchy, back at it again. Let's go. Our quote tonight is from Benjamin Franklin: "Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God." And it's really, really hard to argue with that. Although I think there would be some who would still try. I don't think our guest is one of them, but let's get this thing started by first introducing this man who is with us, so you know how he came to be our guest here tonight. Jeremiah was one of the people who reached out to one of the projects that I'm working on, separate from this show, that Marcus also works on with me, Men of Order. And Jeremiah reached out and he's like, "Hey, I'm interested in writing. I have some different things I'd like to look at in terms of money, sales, that sort of stuff, and entrepreneurship." I said, "All right, let's go." So we had a meeting, we set it up. He came into the chat, and then Marcus put out a request like, "Hey, we're interviewing this person. We're interviewing this person. Anybody who wants to take a shot at coming on the show, we'd be more than willing to have any of our Men of Order folks." And the first person to raise their hand was the one and only man at the bottom of the screen. So Jeremiah, welcome. Thank you for coming on. And how you been doing lately?
Oh, fantastic. Very blessed to be here with you guys. I'm feeling great. Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
You're very welcome. So beyond all of that, one of the things that people that have followed us in the past know is that we're particularly interested in spirituality as well as political thought. And we've had several people that have Christian background that also view freedom. To be clear, I'm not a Christian. I have a separate faith. It's a very unusual and complicated faith, but I respect and learn from the Bible. And one of the things that intrigues me about Jeremiah is one of the things, like he calls himself Anatomy of the Church and State, which obviously calls to Murray Rothbard, one of my fucking heroes.
Yes,
just love the dude. But it also brings into the idea of Christian theology within that as well, which many people don't realize, that several of the people that we like to idolize as anarchists or as libertarians, those sorts of people, were pretty devout Christians. So one of the things I want to dive into, and once we get into to everything, is that depth. But we also want to showcase people that are starting. Both Chad and I worked for a libertarian campaign at one time, and we know what it's like to kind of be behind the scenes of several people and want our voice to be heard as well. Come on, right. We started this. So, so tell us where you see yourself going in the future, Jeremiah.
Oh, yeah. So I just recently started my LLC, Liberty Christian LLC, and my aim is to launch a podcast aptly titled Anatomy of the Church and State. And my goal is really twofold with this. I want to interview church leaders and get them to speak candidly about all the political and cultural things happening in America specifically, and where the Christian fits into that. What are we supposed to do when these things come up? And because even my own church is very vague and uses careful language when they speak about this stuff. So I want some church leaders to get on and speak truth to power, so to speak. And secondly, I would love to influence more Christians into the liberty and freedom movement, because I think there's a lot of things that come with liberty that are a bit scary to Christians. Absolutely. And I don't think they have to be. And I think there's a big misconception there.
For sure. And Yeah, and I think one of the problems that we wind up with, like, and you see, we saw this at the, like, when the first in New Orleans, the first libertarian convention I went to, there were people walking around with dildos, and so, and we had my little girl who was the young, I believe she was 7 or 8 at the time.
Yeah,
My
she was
little
8.
girl was the youngest
Delegate. Yeah.
to the Libertarian Party ever. And so she's walking around there's some dildos. One of the things that people don't understand, that being a libertarian does not mean that you're that you believe in everything. I personally put limits on myself. And I think that that one of the things I've learned from the Bible, and particularly the teachings of Christ, is about self-control, about you are in control of controlling yourself.
Absolutely. I think that, people confuse endorsement of activities, for, like, if we're going to allow these activities to happen, that we endorse them. And that's absolutely not the case. Right. We should be able to live in our own communities with people of our own beliefs, and not press those views on other people, and not have them press those views on us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So can I dig into that a little bit real quick? Because that can come off, I think, maybe as a singular direction answer, a one-way type answer. That only means that if I'm a Christian, I can't push Christ and Christianity on other people, and I can't force them to do things that I want them to do because Christianity tells me those things are good. I can't stop them from doing things that I think are not good because Christianity says they're bad. And I'm talking about things that go that are not part of the non-aggression principle or axiom of non-aggression, where it's just about invading someone else's or violating someone else's rights. What I'm talking about is, if there's behavior that you think is inappropriate or is unhealthy or is immoral, but is strictly personally immoral and doesn't infringe on the rights of other people, then there are some Christians who want to enact laws to stop that behavior from happening, whether it's drugs, prostitution, whatever the case may be, where it's consenting adults or it's something with the person's body autonomy, those types of things.
Yep.
The flip side of that, though, is what you were saying about endorsement. So, like, I think there are a lot of times where Christians will see libertarians and the Libertarian Party and that whole liberty movement as scary, because they think, oh, well, if you say that this stuff's not legal or shouldn't be illegal, then you're saying it's okay. The flip side of that is, there are people who are part of the liberty movement, who are part of the Libertarian Party, who believe that if you don't endorse it, then you are a Nazi, you are a bigot, you are all these other things. So it's there. This is not just something that goes one way. It definitely goes both ways, and that's where it's been really difficult, but it's actually been kind of fulfilling for me to delve into this and to really kind of test my own my own faith, I guess, against this worldview. In that, okay, I don't know. Do you think that that Christianity and biblical values can be congruent with libertarianism, with anarchy, with freedom?
I absolutely do. But like you said, it's the system, right? Because you're going to have a hard time imposing, like, if I don't endorse doing drugs, and you call me I don't endorse gender studies in kindergarten, that I'm a white supremacist. You can only enforce me having to put my child through that if there's laws in place and there's people that are making, you know what I'm saying? It's not the people, it's the system.
It's the system.
And I think there's a misconception that, if you get our people in, everything's going to be right. It's like, no, it's not the people, it's the system. And if we roll back the state, people are going to have a hard time enforcing stuff on you if hey, well, the government's tiny and we can't enforce that, right? So I think they can. There can be a day where I can't enforce my values on you, and you can't enforce your BS on me, because there's no apparatus to enforce those things, right?
Right.
I think the dismantling of that is what should be the goal. Roll back the state.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess the question is about how that translates to a Christian who wants to join the Libertarian Party or the Liberty Movement, and they see, okay, well, there's all this weird shit in there where like these people want to force you to accept their ideology.
Right.
It's funny. It's like, no, like I want everybody to live their own lives, but I'm not down with that stuff. And I don't want my kid. Now, I think there's some ways to do some of this stuff where you can back yourself out of the system. Like don't send your kids to public school. Don't even send your kids to private school if you can help it. Because a lot of the private schools are pushing this stuff too. They're like in lockstep with the state government.
Not many people know that either. They think private school is like the savior, and it's like, you better vet that private school before you send your kids to
exactly. Yeah. So like for a Christian coming in, what's your carrot? How do you approach that conversation where you have someone who's like, look, I recognize that there's some tyrannical stuff going on, and I don't want to be a tyrant. But I kind of like the military, and I kind of like the cops, and I kind of like this, and I kind of like that. Like, how do you start to bridge and have those conversations with people to where they can feel like they're welcome in the liberty movement while they're on the path to recognizing that maybe the cops are the people who are going to take your guns.
Right.
And maybe the cops are the people who locked your business down and didn't let you open it up and made you wear masks, or they shut down your birthday party, or whatever the case may be.
Right. Where I have started, and I think you just got to start grassroots. What I've been doing is I've been participating in a lot of small groups in my church and just getting to know people, because people are more likely to listen to what you have to say if they can empathize with you, if they can relate to you, if you form a bond outside of that first, and like, hey, I'm a person, you're a person, and then you can kind of start to have those conversations. And I've been in my small groups, I have been starting to bring that stuff up. I've been dropping little, like, as we get more comfortable with each other, little hints, hey, did you hear what happened in Hilliard Public City Schools? Christians, how do you feel about that? Would you say something? Would you stay quiet? Because I think we need to be more vocal. And I find that most of the people in my church are very passive. And I don't think that's just my church either. I think a lot of passiveness is in the church, and for whatever reason, people are just afraid to say anything. So I think it takes courage for someone to be that person to open those conversations up so we can start speaking candidly about it.
I think some of the passivity from an outsider looking in, my wife's cousin is a leader in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and he's a pastor in a Michigan church. And the one of the problems that he has faced, because he is an outspoken opponent of like forced vaccination, those kinds of things, and the church, on the other hand, has been very vocal of support of the state. And I personally think that he had a lot of courage, because he came out as one of, like, it's not like he's one of the leaders of the national church, but he's one of the recognized pastors as a thought leader within the church. And he has come out passionately in defense of body autonomy. And so I think some of the problem is that that a lot of Christians are getting mixed signals. And, you can't, I believe it was Jesus in the Bible that said you can't serve two masters. And, you cannot, if you're going to be a spiritual person and you do believe in God, which I do, you cannot have the state as your God as well. Do you find that to be pretty close to what you experience as well?
Absolutely true. There's again, all these misconceptions that, like you said, you can't serve two men. You will inevitably love one and hate the other, or serve one more than the other. It's inevitable. There's no way around that. And I just finished David Lipscomb's book, Civil Government, and he put it so brilliantly. It's like the church, if the church gets involved in the state and vice versa, it inevitably becomes corrupt 100% of the time. There is not a time where church and state gets involved with each other and it ends swimmingly.
Right.
It's always going to end poorly. And those Bibles are throughout the Bible, the stories are in there. It's in there for you to read. Like, look at when people try to govern themselves and rule over each other. It always ends badly. I just finished the book of Judges. I mean, Gideon is a shining example of why that can't be. I mean, God went out of his way to make sure that, hey, Gideon, when you win this war, I'm going to make sure that everyone knows it was because of me, not because of you. He dwindled his army down to people who drink water a weird way, right? And he somehow defeated his enemies. And then what do the people of Israel do as soon as he wins the war? Oh, will you rule over us, Gideon?
Right.
And then how does that end? He creates an altar to his vest. I forget what the term for it is in the Bible, and it ends terribly. It's inevitable.
Yeah, and that's also true of any other religion as well. It's not just Christianity. One of the things that I've covered, and I people can look it up on the channel later, but I covered the Assassins, which is the Hassassin, which is a division of Islam, and I talk about Salah ad-Din, who is arguably the most successful Islamic leader in history. And what he did is the opposite of what you're talking about. Though he was a very devout Muslim, he did not impose on his kingdom. Like, you could be a Christian, you could be a Jew. He didn't particularly like pagans, but you could be a Christian or a Jew within his confines of his caliphate and be fine. Like, that was okay, because he understood. And this is I'm not trying to say he had the right kind of government, because there is no right kind of government, but he managed to be very successful by taking the state and church and separate them into two known entities. So it's my point is that it's not just a Christian issue,
right?
But I also think that when you look throughout history, one of the things that becomes clear is that tyrants are going to tyrant, and they will use any kind of religious. It doesn't matter if Rome was using pagan symbolism to be tyrannical towards Jews, and just anytime you start marrying that, it becomes a problem. So as a Christian, how do you keep your political ideology and your philosophical ideology separate, or how do you integrate them? Because for me, I integrate, but I'd like to hear what you do in yours.
That's I'm still on a journey myself. I like you tried to keep it separate for a while, and that's a tough question, man. Can you marry those two together? Do Christians even can do religious practices have any business getting involved in government at all? I've heard some people tell me that we shouldn't vote, we shouldn't participate, we shouldn't do anything for any political party. But if it has to be dismantled, how can you do it any other way besides from within? So you almost have to marry the two if you really want change, right? So as soon as I find out that answer, I'll let you know.
Sure. I do want to say I disagree with you. I don't think the political means is the only means to. In fact, I would say that we'll never get there through the political means.
Right.
It may be the final shoe. Right. But I'm more of an agorist. I believe that the less relevant that the government is in our lives, the more likely we are to give it away. It's kind of like Rothbard said. He said, the day, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said the day that people realize that the government is nothing more than a bandit gang writ large, that will be the day that it passes away like any other mafia gang. So. But I think that the place of political action is in education.
Right. Yeah. So I guess, beyond education, how do we make them irrelevant, without getting in there and rolling it back? How, what does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, I think I think to a certain degree, and this is where it's been, I'm going to be honest, it's been a struggle. Like I went through, I think we all kind of go through these phases at different points where and sometimes we revisit some of those phases.
Right. Yeah.
But like I went through my, like I was very liberal early. Like I was conservative in my own personal approach to things, but I was kind of like a live and let live. And so, but I didn't understand like how the politics, Democrats and Republicans were basically the same thing, and it's just a mono party running things with like different where they had like a draft of like, all right, we got abortion, okay, we got drugs, okay, we got it's this weird weird setup. But anyway,
do the NFL draft music.
Yeah, exactly. I went through that phase where I was like trying to pick which one was actually the right one, and then I guess I got to this point where I finally said, okay, hang on a second, something's up here. I think this whole system's busted, and I'm not even participating anymore.
Right.
And then I kind of came back, and I was like, well, I'll participate, but this way. And I think where I've come as I'm approaching 49 years old, I think the place where I have come to rest is that being involved in whether it's the Libertarian Party or some sort of like, political movement, whether it's like helping out an individual candidate with a race so they can win a local race or something like that, and getting involved in local politics.
Yep.
Where I've come to rest is that the best way to approach the education piece is to get involved in the thing where all the eyeballs are.
Right.
And all the eyeballs are on the politics. And so what our responsibility is like, I don't see like the LP as I'm not looking at like Dave Smith to be the president of the United States who's going to save us from tyranny.
Right.
What I'm really excited about though is if Dave Smith or someone like him, Spike Cohen, if somebody like that actually gets to be the voice of the Libertarian Party,
yes,
for this election cycle leading up to 2024, if that had been the case and it hadn't been Joe Jorgensen, who was the oatmeal of the Libertarian Party, if it had not been that and it had been Spike leading the ticket and her just kind of like handling like you kiss hands and shake babies, and that was
I'll do
was
the
on
talking,
purpose.
you do the
That was
shaking,
that was on purpose. That was on purpose. I know you shake hands and kiss babies, but anyway, Joe Biden sniffs all of them. But anyway, no. So if Spike Cohen had been the messenger,
right,
at the front, there's no way he just leaves when they tell him to leave the debate.
Right.
When they had their bus parked outside.
Right.
They would have said like, no, like we're going to make a spectacle of this.
Yep.
You will drag us away. We will make a scene. This will make national news.
Yep.
They will have to like work really hard to suppress this because, and so the really long point I'm trying to make is the way that I think that this education takes place is through platforms like this and like the one that you're trying to approach. I think that's a really good idea to go after, trying to bring some of this to the mind of the church, and to not necessarily to make the church or make God fit into libertarianism, but to try to
make a bridge,
to ask those really good questions, important questions like, hey, am I missing something here? Or is this, do you think that would Christ have come down here and said, okay, listen, from now on, prostitution's illegal and we're going to stone? Oh, no, wait, he did the opposite of that. He told them to stop stoning the prostitutes. Let's really talk about this and really think about like where we're going to fall on these things, because the rest of it is the political process serves to me solely as a further education vehicle. The eyeballs are there. So when Biden is talking his bullshit and whoever the Republicans run up there is talking their other side of the bullshit.
Yeah.
If we have the libertarian there who's actually able to give a response to the State of the Union or the debate shit every time,
Yep.
it would be beautiful.
Sky's the limit. You hit the nail on the head on 2 marks. 1, yeah, Jesus didn't come to save the righteous, right? It's like,
Yes, right.
And 2, yeah, you got to get where the eyeballs are. I think
Mhm.
Christians in general are just really bad at fighting the culture war, and
Mhm.
if we continue to be bad at it, then the bad guys will continue to win. So something's got to change. That's why I enjoy guys like Bryson Gray. I don't agree with everything Bryson Gray says, but he's got eyeballs on him. He's hit the charts on iTunes, and he's in people's eyes, and they're hearing his message. We need more. We need more like that.
So Jeremiah, we've talked. Chad just talked at length about kind of his journey. How did you get into all this craziness?
That's a good one.
Oh my gosh! All right, I'm gonna get real candid with you guys here. So
Let's go.
I was earlier this year, and for up until March of this year, and for the 3-4 years preceding that, some timelines are fuzzy. I was always Christian, but I had strayed so far from God due to addiction, and I was something I was battling with for a long time, and then I almost died, and God pulled me out of death.
Wow!
And when I woke up in that hospital, March 30th of 2022, it was like I was kept straying farther from God, and God was like, "Nope, come on back." And once that happened, it was like, I can't let this second chance go. So I've always had these ideas, but I was too messed up 24/7 to ever act on them. Right. I've been following the Hoteps for a while, and you guys, and I was just a passive watcher, and I remember writing down ideas, and they always go to the wayside because my addiction needs fed. I can't work on anything else. So once he pulled me from that, now I'm sober and of clear mind. I was like, it's something is like burning inside me to take action. So that's kind of how I ended up, on almost on my deathbed there.
Wow. Yeah. And that's what God does. Sometimes you get to that just real deep tower, of Babel falling on you kind of nonsense. And, but then you have to rebuild. And it is in that rebuilding process that I think the greatness comes about. How did you get involved with politics?
So I was a card-carrying member of the Libertarian Party for a while, but again, just passively. And again, once I got pulled out of the darkness, it's like, what can I do? Like you said, Chad, locally, how can I influence? I don't really want to get involved nationally too much, but in my county here in Ohio, and maybe in Ohio, I can help make a difference. So I just reached out to my head state organizer and was like, hey, I know I've been attending the meetings and I haven't really been doing anything. How can I get more involved? So he gave me, hey, we always need help with this. We always need help with that. So I've been just kind of bouncing around as a volunteer organizer. If anybody is running locally in Ohio and they need resources, I help point them in those resources. I helped interview national candidates for endorsement, and just kind of was like, here's what I can do without, I'm never going to run for office. And I don't know how far in the weeds I want to get, but I want to do something. And the Mises Caucus gave me an outlet to do that.
Nice. And so who was your gateway through into the Mises Caucus?
I mean, Dave Smith, right? Listening to him is how I found out about the Mises. And then as I got on Mises, the Mises Institute's website, I'm reading their articles, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I not discover these people before? This is great. And now I'm addicted to it. And I'm just like Rothbard and Ludwig and Thomas Sowell, all these people I'm just like getting into now. And it's been fantastic. Nice. And then, Drake Lundstrom, who's our state organizer, has been just a wonderful guy to just like, he understands like life comes up, and he's always been very accommodating to how I want to help out, and just kind of helped me like dip my toes in, and like kind of as I become more involved, like where can I get involved? And he's been a really good guide.
Nice. Yeah. Myself, I've never been like officially involved with the Mises Caucus myself. It's always been something that I found because I like Ludwig von Mises myself, and human action is a really good, but boring. Just to be clear, it's a boring.
It's on next on my list on Audible.
Listen, no. I mean, let me just stop you right there. I don't know how you do your Audible, But if you audible while you're driving, do not listen to Human Action. You will die. You will die in a
Noted.
horrific crash.
Rothbard is better
from
for
falling
that.
asleep. You will fall asleep at the wheel and you will crash into oncoming traffic.
All right. What about the gym?
I almost did.
Am I gonna fall asleep at the treadmill?
Yeah, probably not. You'd probably be all right.
Gym's
That's actually a
good.
good place. Yeah. But no, man, like seriously, I almost died. Like I was trying to listen to Human Action. It's like 47 hours or some nonsense. And and I was like, you know what? Let me turn this off and switch to I don't know, something way more exciting, like I don't know, a Robert Ludlum book or something. Anyway, it was just it's good. It's really good stuff. It's just like reading the dictionary while you're driving. Is
it any worse than, have you guys read Anti-Fragile?
No.
Oh my gosh, who's the author's name? I'm so bad with names. Shoot, if you guys get a chance, the book is called Anti-Fragile. It's a really good book, but it's tough. Like you said, don't listen to it while you're driving.
Yeah, it's a very academic book. This is a very academic book, and it's not. Anyway, it's just not the. It's not the thing to listen to while you're driving. That's all.
Right. And for me, the best things like listening to philosophy and stuff, Rothbard keeps me excited. And like, if I'm listening to Rothbard, that's where I'm at on the long drive, because I'll get mad at the state, and I'm like, and he does that for me. But there are a lot of really good authors out there other than Rothbard.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would also suggest, because it sounds like you're kind of in that, you're broadening your horizons, I would also suggest Voltaire de Cleyre to get and specifically, Rothbard gives you a look at anarchism from the right.
Okay.
Voltaire de Cleyre gives you a look at anarchism from the left. And so
how does that work?
And the emphasis is different.
Okay.
She's not. Notice I'm not saying Emma Goldman, which is where I got my influence from the left. Emma Goldman is a anarcho-communist, and she does not at all believe in private property. She doesn't believe in any of that stuff. So that's a little too intense.
Right.
Where Voltaire de Cleyre is she is more of a mutualist. She believes more. Can't we be equitable? Isn't it better to just, if we're going to have a business, shouldn't if we're going to have a capitalist kind of framework, shouldn't we cooperate to get there? Shouldn't we employ other people from our from other understandings to make our understanding better? Doesn't that build a whole to a greater extent? There's also a focus from the left more on civil liberties than economics. So you wind up with that, and that's why I like Voltaire de Cleyre, because she's not as much of although I like Emma Goldman for a lot of stuff. One of the best things she ever said was, and I'm not quoting, this is a paraphrase, but she was talking about women's suffrage. This is before women got the vote. She was like, men can't do it. Why do you think women can?
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Right. So yeah.
Gotcha.
So I would work with Voltaire de Cleyre, but back to your project. I really like the idea of the interviewing different Christian leaders. I think that's a really good place to start. Where where do you think you personally would like to start that project off at?
Honestly, I think we have some pretty big church leaders here, and I have some ways to get in with them. If I can get my feet wet here, I think some more prominent figures I can eventually reach. So, it's just like with the politics, start local. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Pastor Rod Parsley. He's here in Ohio. He's got a mega church. And I bet dollars to donuts he would get on a podcast with me. But I'm on this journey myself, right? So I want the audience. I want to learn along with my audience.
Hey, just so you know, update. Inflation has made it such that dollars to donuts is not a good. It's not a good. Now,
what is it now?
Now you have to say donuts to dollars.
Donuts to dollars. That's right.
It's more than a donut for $1 now. More than $1 for a donut. Anyway,
not even the good donuts, just the plain.
Right, exactly. It used to be like that. That used to be So there used to be like this, like a dime a dozen, that sort of thing. Like it was like, anyway, we're not there anymore.
Not even, what does a dime get you? Maybe
we're not in
two,
Kansas
couple
anymore,
donuts.
Dorothy. Holy shit, Toto. Anyway, continue.
Right,
I apologize.
right. No, yeah, that's a good question. So I'm anxious to see where this goes, and luckily I have guys like you that I've been getting involved with to kind of give me tips and help me along this journey. I've been more than grateful, being involved with the Men of Order, and you guys, and just being able to soak in your guys' knowledge and ideas.
Yeah. Glad to have
Cool.
you. Sure.
One of the things too that we can do, myself, I have contact information for Mark Kreslins, who was recognized by the Mises Institute. I don't know exactly the position he holds, but he is a former congressman. He was a Republican congressman who became an anarchist and wrote for Mises, and he is also a secessionist. And we've interviewed him twice, and he's an amazing guest.
An anarchist.
Awesome. right.
He's an anarchist too. I was just going to say, I'm just saying, like he's like the coolest Christian anarchist outside of myself that I have found. Anyway, I think
awesome.
And also my in the Seventh-day Adventist community, I'm friends with both my local pastor, his name's Aaron Clark, who happens to also be my brother-in-law, and like I said, I know Ron Kelly real well, and he would also be a very good guest as well. So
awesome.
We can kind of hook you up with some other people.
Y'all are close enough together, like Indiana and Ohio aren't that far apart where y'all
not at all.
Y'all could work go across border lines.
Whereabouts? You don't have to like say I live in here, but whereabouts in Ohio are you?
Columbus, Buckeye country, baby.
Nice. Yeah, that's right down the road. If you ever want to come to Indiana, man, and hang out,
definitely
hook up, and we throw parties. Warning, it is a party. But
Jeremiah, you said you're from Buckeye country. I just wanted to congratulate y'all. Y'all had a great weekend this weekend. Your toughest opponent yet.
Toughest opponent.
Good job. Way to go.
Still undefeated against the bye week.
That was a shot at the Big Ten.
I know you and your SEC
bye week. Yeah. Anyway, I digress again. I can't
that could be a whole other podcast.
I know, right?
Big Ten SEC.
Me and Tyler are about to start an SEC one. It's gonna be starting up here soon. Where he's a Georgia grad and I'm maybe not Georgia grad, but he's a Georgia fan. I think he went to a little smaller school, played lacrosse up in New York or Philadelphia or something like that.
Right on. But I'd have no problems visiting.
Sure. We'll definitely have you to talk trash when the SEC beats the Big Ten team in the playoffs yet again.
I think he's talking about coming over to Indiana, Chad.
Well, I'll do both.
I know.
I'll do both. I'll do both. I have no problems traveling. But if I come to you got to come to me too. All right.
Right on. I like Columbus, man. They got a great occult store there.
Oh yeah.
Hey, look,
actually, we got several occult stores right on High Street.
Right before our eyes. So I don't want this other thing that we discussed to just kind of like be like a drive-by. And I don't, share the degree of detail, obviously, that you're comfortable with or whatever. Sure. But I'm really interested in this because I kind of feel like while it wasn't necessarily identical from like either an addiction standpoint or hitting like a rock bottom like that, but Marcus knows this because I've shared I have a video on my like personal YouTube channel that I put out like 4 years ago, where I was just talking about how I was at a point where like I recognized that the way I saw the world was, as far as like myself, my role as a parent and as a man in this world was, you go through life, you punch a clock, you day in, day out, week in, week out, you look forward to the weekend, whatever, drink and watch football your way through the weekend and do whatever, to pass the time. And then you come out on the other side of it and it's back to the grind again. And you do that for however long until you retire, and then you hand that bag of garbage off to your kids and say, "Hey, it's your turn. You do this shit now." And I just was like, okay, I either embrace that and just go through the motions and be a consumer and veg for the rest of my life and become a cog in the big machine,
Right.
or this is like BS, and the only way that I can like prove that it's BS is if I become something that is separate from that BS and like begin to create and to take some risks. Like I had a thought about like I realize that there are people who have like mental health issues that are like legitimately like chemically induced, and that there's some brain chemistry and other things that it's really difficult, and that there's some only like professional remedies to some of that stuff. But I think there are a lot of people who are a victim and a product of a system that induces a sort of hopelessness
Right.
in people, and recognizing that and seeing like, okay, all right, so either I go through the motions of this process and I just hand this prison, room off to my kids and let them live in this prison room for the rest of their lives too. Or I off myself to escape from it and then leave them in probably a worse prison. Or my thing is like, all right, so like if you're and this is like kind of my message to anyone. Now, again, I know that there's clinical, like legitimate. I'm not trying to pretend like I'm some sort of like psychologist or psychiatrist. So, with that disclaimer, I think there are a lot of people, especially men, who, when it comes down to this sort of situation, if you're thinking like, you know what, this ain't worth it anymore, I'm ready to tap out. My suggestion is, all right, what's the reason why you're wanting to tap out? Why don't you just try to go for it? Go for that shit that you think you're not worthy of, and try to see what happens when you actually like live your life the way that God created you to live your life, instead of just snapping the shackles on your ankles and wrists and doing what somebody else is telling you to do. And so I started doing that. And that's what I did 4 years ago. And like the results have been amazing.
Yeah.
I met Marcus, I met you, I met like all these,
Was there like a straw that broke the camel's back? When did you have that epiphany? Like,
so I guess like if you watch that video, like there is I would say that there is. It was this moment. My daughter and I went, we had like a little date night or whatever. We went to see a movie, and I was doing some stuff with work before that, in that week leading up to that. This was on the weekend, and I came out of the movie. I didn't have signal in the theater. Like the theater has like terrible signal. So when I came out, I had like 3 voicemails and like 7 missed calls, and it was all work stuff. And so like we're in the car, and I'm like listening to these voicemails, and she's just like over in the car. And like by the time I get off of the voicemail, like she's just like facing the window, and she's just like sitting there, and I don't realize it until after, like, that she's crying. And the thing was like, it's like, this is supposed to be our time, and like, work, got in the way of it. Anyway, so that was kind of the thing where I was like, you know what, like I got to do this job because it's what puts bread on the table, but I'll be damned if I'm going to do only that.
Gotcha.
So now I do like a million other things,
Right.
and I have like too many balls in the air. But like, honestly, like I don't know that I've ever felt more alive. Like I don't have that feeling anymore where I wake up in the morning and I'm like, ugh, I don't want to get up today. Like I wake up in the morning at 5:30 and I'm like, I don't know if I have enough time to do everything I need to do today.
Right.
And it's a completely different feeling. And sometimes it's overwhelming. I'm not going to lie,
Yeah.
but I never have that like depressed, I don't want to get up, I'm going to just lay in bed on a Saturday or whatever. Like I don't have time to lay in bed on Saturday. I got shit to do.
Right.
Right. So it's a completely different, and that came specifically directly out of this moment of like honesty with myself, where it was like, okay, who the hell are you? Because I was living like somebody else's life, because that's what I thought was laid out for me.
Right. That's just all there is, right? Somebody else's life. It's crazy how long we'll tolerate crap before we decide to make a change, if we ever decide to make a change. In some ways, going to your 9 to 5, punching in and out, hitting the bottle after work or whatever, is just seems easier, right? The narrow path is rarely taken, and it's the hard path, but so worth it. So worth it.
And we talk about this quite a lot. The middle path, or what I, in my spirituality, is the middle pillar, the dove path towards God, is the more difficult path, it seems, because all you have to do is focus on God. That's it. Right. There's nothing else. You just focus on God. It seems like that would be the easy way. Good luck. It's harder than hell to just be like, yep, God's more God, and then God, because it is really hard. When you were conquering your addiction, what was the aside, you gave kind of an overview of it, but what really gave you that strength? What did you feel? What was your experience?
I had reached a point where I had accepted that life. I'm just going to work my 9 to 5, and as many times as I'm every weekend that approaches, this is going to be my last weekend blowing powder on my nose. This is it. This is it. It's done. And that moment never came. And when it never came, and I prayed half-heartedly, right? Lukewarm Christian. And it wasn't working for myself. And this is my life. I just had come to terms with, all right, well, this is how I'm going to die. It's going to be either a heart attack, or the bottle's going to kill my liver, or that's it. This is just how I'm going to live. And for whatever reason, God said, no, you're not. And just once he pulled me out of that opportunity, it was like I had coming out of that hospital, I had never felt better as bad as that few nights had been prior. It was like, I felt like I had died and been reborn. And I was like, I cannot waste this opportunity. I can't. It says, oh man, I can't remember the verse, but when Jesus said, it would have been better for you to not know me than to come to me and then go back. So going back for me now is not an option. Because I'm told, through the word, that's going to be worse. And I don't looking back on that life, I just like, if it's going to be worse than what I had just lived through, I might not live through it now. Yeah. I might not live through it now. So that's what keeps me going, is like just remembering how awful my life was before then.
And I think that's part of the process, is the whole dying, I because of my path, I look at symbols, and the whole being reborn thing is a common symbol. And, when Chad was telling his story again, which I was familiar with, and comparing it to yours, it actually reminds me of kind of an event in my life too, where things kind of started to turn around. The people that know me now, like Chad would know, that my family is massive to me. And like, my kids mean the world to me. I have 4 children. Do you have children? Just
no kids.
Okay. So I have kids, and they're great. And they're a huge part of why I do the things that I do. But before that, I have a wonderful wife who is amazing and supportive. She's an anarchist. She's, just the greatest thing in the world, and beautiful beyond what I should be able to get. For sure.
Outkicked your coverage.
Yeah, right. Right. So
look, man, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. You gotta outkick it, and then you got to be the deep snapper, or the kicker himself, who goes down there and makes the tackle.
Yep.
Sure. I'll outkick the coverage all day.
Right. But there was a time when I was married to a different woman, and Long story short, she was not very nice to me. She was very abusive, literally beat me because I don't hit women. I was bigger than her and could have fought back, but I don't hit women. So she beat me into a doorway and blacked my eye. Long story short. But so I left her, just beat the shit out of me. So I'm like, see ya. but she was
Good
also
idea,
not
probably.
right. But she was also not very good to my oldest son, who was her stepson. And he and I, this date me a little bit, because he was young, but I took him to see The Bridge to Terabithia in the movie theaters. Yeah. And when the girl, and spoiler for those who haven't seen it, when the girl dies, he and him eyeballed, just two of us in the middle of this movie, just cried our eyes out. And I made
it's a rough moment.
Right. And it had been his life had been a lot of hell before that, because again, the person that was supposed to protect him, namely me, did not do that. And I decided at that moment I was going to turn my life around. And so a very similar, different circumstances, very similar thing. And I think that these are the kinds of things that propel us forward. So I want to kind of get into current events with you. Do you think that the United States, regardless, we're not in an anarchist society. Yes, I want, for those that, for those that might be watching this and going, you're, selling out to the statists. No, I'm just living in reality. We do not live in an anarchist society. Do you think that this country is working on getting to that kind of moment, like that both of you and I just talked about, to where we give up this tyrannical crap that we've been through for the last 5 or so years, really the hardcore since COVID? What's your opinion?
Oh boy, honestly, I hope so, but I don't think so. I know every generation has had world events happen, and I think, well, this is the end. This is the book of Revelation. We're all going. Everyone's had that moment, right? So it's easy.
It's been like 2,000 years or so of people thinking the end times are near. Yeah.
But the world has never been as connected as it is, so it's a lot easier for it to be approaching the end. I just finished the book of Revelation for the second time, and I'm like, is America the prostitute described in Revelation? Because one world government's coming, if you believe the Bible, regardless of what we do. So the glass is half full in me wants to say, yes, we can absolutely roll back the state and we can get into a country that we are proud to live in. The other half of me is like, maybe this is going the way it's supposed to be going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's kind of, go ahead, Chad.
I tend to agree. Like I look at this stuff and I'll admit there was a moment or a period of time where I felt like, oh yeah, we're on our way to freedom. We just have to do this. We have to do this. We have to do this. I'm at a point now where I'm looking at this stuff around here, and I'm like, we ain't seen nothing yet.
Right.
It's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets any better, and we may not live to see it get better. And in a way, I almost. What I keep trying to tell people, and this is, I have to give credit where it's due. I've been, ever since Vin Armani came on our podcast a year ago, I've been watching his Royal Path podcast with his priest, Father Turbo, and his friend Andrew, and like doing some other stuff where, I'm in there in a Telegram group with him with Bitcoin Mystery School. And more and more I look at this stuff and I'm like, man, you look at the history of like the martyrs and saints, and it's the biggest thing that we can do is protect our soul. Like, yes, there's some things that we can do materially where we can kind of protect ourselves and prolong the inevitable and give ourselves more time for more souls to be won for God, for Christ.
Right.
But in the meantime, the demons that seek the ruin of souls do not take a day off. They do not sleep. And I just want to be really careful that I don't become the tyrant, the evil that I'm fighting against by trying to fight so hard that I lose my soul in the process. Because that's they don't care. Like if someone is, teaching your kid trans studies, whatever, at school or whatever, and then your response is to take out some sort of violent, whatever on them.
Yep.
You have done the work of the demons for them.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you are not helping like you think you are.
Nope.
And so that's what I just try to warn people, like, look, man, I understand there's a lot of stuff that's been going on over the last decade or so, and especially like this last couple of years, but
it's easy to get angry, isn't it?
I'm hearing a lot of like righteous anger, and I'm hearing a lot of, calls to action. And I'm like, well, what is your action? What's the end result of that? And like, okay, so you like Ron DeSantis. Okay. And he's going to make this illegal, and he's going to make it to where you can't do this. It's like, all right. So how do you enforce that? And like even with the abortion stuff, it's like, haha, we won. I'm like, okay. So are you going to kill doctors? Are you going to kill mothers? Like, what's the end game here?
Right.
So that's the thing. Like, we're so deeply wounded that like we have to do a lot of like work on ourselves, and we have to, and a lot of that work is simply like opening ourselves up to grace and mercy and forgiveness, and like doing the repentance that it takes to really truly open ourselves up to that. Because I think a lot of times people do lip service to that and everything. But I don't know. I'm trying not to get so like hyped up on like, if Dave Smith wins the nomination, we're gonna do, I want him to, because I want people to hear the ideas, but I'm not like that's it, we did it,
yeah, at the flag, there we go.
There ain't gonna be no we did it. I don't think we're dead.
And I think that the whole deal is summed up in plan for the best, or hope for the best, and plan for the worst.
Right.
We can hope that things are going to turn around, that things are going to get better, but you better get ready for shit not to work out.
Yeah, if they don't get caught with your pants down.
Right. Yeah. Literally.
Well, and the biggest thing is don't get caught with your soul's pants down. That's the biggest thing. Is like I hear some people talking about this stuff and everything, and I'm like, all right, but like, for real, if like you lose everything, if they take everything from you, are you going to say, yes, I will, whatever you want me to do, whatever you ask me to say, I will say it, I will do it, if you just let me get back to my life? So there's a lot of people, myself included, like I'm saying this because I'm struggling with this myself. I don't want to like ditch the house I'm living in and the stuff that my kids are doing, their extracurriculars and all this other stuff, and just leave all that behind and go live in rural Mexico and do all that stuff. I got it in my Rolodex.
Sure.
But I would really rather not have to do that. But I think the more people come to grips with like, hey, there's going to come a time where you're probably going to have to actually pull that trigger. Are you ready to pull that trigger? And I don't mean like a violent trigger. I mean like pull the trigger on making that decision to, abandon everything, to really detach yourself from all your material possessions and all your material attachments and everything, the stuff that binds you to this world and keeps you from that relationship, that unity with God. Are you prepared to do that? Because if you aren't, those things are the ring of power that will cast you into Mount Doom.
Yep.
That's the thing that's like, I gotta have the ring. If I just put this ring on just for a little while, I can protect myself. I can save myself from everything that's coming. Like, no, you can't.
No, you can't.
You can't save yourself from what's coming. And you're gonna doom yourself, because you're going to attach yourself to something that will capture your soul. And it's not like, I don't know. Like, I know maybe you and I can have this conversation separately, but I know there's a lot of stuff in the Bible about punishment and damnation and all this stuff, but I really believe that stuff is more of like us choosing separation for attachment to the things of this world and attachment to evil. And I think it's less about God's like, hey, you didn't do enough of the stuff that's good, so you go to the bad place. I think it's more of like, hey, God, I love you and all, but not as much as I love this stuff.
Yep. I'm 100% agreeing with you on that. It all stems from the root is, do you love it more than you love God? If you do, you got problems. That's really, and I think we can all agree that the majority of people have not thought enough about, like you said, if it all goes away, if I have to make that choice, am I really going to choose the narrow path, or am I gonna I'm gonna go back to the wide road? And because I just can't miss that Netflix show. It's the season finale.
Bro, I almost said Netflix when I was going through it, but I like stopped short. I was like, I don't want to make it that simple, but sometimes it really is. Sometimes that's the line for people. I think a lot of us, that's the line for us. It's like, but I don't want to give up Disney Plus. It doesn't matter. Look, I can bitch about the fact that they're teaching our kids all kind of trans shit and like all kind of weird. Like they have like a kids cartoon that's about like having your period. Like we can, I'm not canceling that subscription. Like,
Right.
Okay.
Right. You're still going to give them your money. I've gone out of my way to not give Disney money lately. I've tried, but it's tough, right? Because these corporations,
fucking ESPN, man.
Oh my gosh, you can't get away from it because this corporation owns all these companies.
Right.
So even if I'm not buying directly from Disney, I'm probably buying something that Disney owns anyway, somewhere. Like, how do you even? Yeah.
You can't even wake up in the morning without paying them because they own your alarm clock.
Right. Yeah. The thing is though, that's how it's planned. One of the things that, and again, I'm a weirdo. I went and read, it was actually this past Friday. I had watched a thing on like Discovery about it. But I went and read while my wife was in doing her, because she's better at doing the like weekly grocery stuff. So I'm out in the car reading while she's doing that. And I read one of the Dead Sea Scrolls called the Scroll of War. And it's a really interesting, and for those that don't know, it's extra biblical. It was probably written by the Essenes, which is there's a real good chance Jesus was an Essene. Very long story. Anyhow, it's a sect of Judaism. And anyway, they found it in the 40s in the middle of the desert. Long story short. Anyway, in the Scroll of War, it talks about the end times, and it talks about the final battle, if you will, and the protagonist, or the bad guy in the story is Belial, and it's this final battle between the sons of darkness and the sons of light. And one of the things that it teaches is that the enemy doesn't just come at you, and Chad and I have talked about this in detail, but doesn't just come at you with all this obviously evil bullshit, like we're with the what Chad was talking about with the immoral crap all over the place. They're going to come at you with shit that looks like it's good, because it comes down to exactly what you were talking about, Jeremiah. It comes down to, am I going to choose God, or am I going to choose things that might seem like they're God? Am I going to choose my church, or am I going to choose God? And so those are the difficulties that we are going to be approaching. We're going to be approaching, and the demon Belial is specific. And because my weirdness, I have faced Belial, because I come from a background of ceremonial magic. I was instructed by a positive spirit that I needed to see what I was facing. So I called Belial, and the
crazy man.
I know, dude. No, I wouldn't do it today. Fuck all that. That was back when I was being jiggy. But yeah. So to give you the idea of the lore behind Belial, when the lore behind it is when Satan fell from heaven and got to hell, Belial was already there. So,
gotcha.
So this guy is bad, but what he does is his job for Satan as a demon. His job is to mislead. He is the ultimate politician. He is the one who comes out and tells you, these are the good things. These are the things that you should be doing. So as spiritual people, we need to be aware that not only are we going, I do think we're going to be facing some evil, bad shit. We're going to have to make easy choices. Do you choose to sacrifice your children in the middle of a field?
Right.
No. You know, that's going to be easy to decide.
Right.
But you also, do you choose to stop going to a church, or do you choose to stop following a particular path, even if you have been doing that? I face this every day. Do you choose to go away from things that you have known all of your life because you are seeing facts laid down in front of you? Do you choose God, or do you choose your church? And that is going to be a difficult path going forward for the world.
Oh yeah. The devil masquerades as an angel of light, and people forget. In the Bible, it clearly states that the devil is Lord of the earth. It's not God.
Right.
God is Lord of heaven. And I think people, Christians, especially, pardon the term, I use this. I know it's probably overused. Lukewarm Christians it's not clicking for them. It's like, the devil is the ruler of the earth. That's why you got to put that armor on of God and be ready, because he'll come as an angel of light and convince you, be loyal to the church. Our message is the message you need to be listening to. Forget what that, God told you that? No, God told us you need to come this way. And a lot of people are going to be swayed, I believe.
How do you feel like the for lack of a better way of describing it, the prosperity gospel, if you believe in God, you do this, and all the good stuff is going to happen to you, and like, you're going to have all the things of this earth, and it's like, where do you get that from?
Right. I don't recall anywhere where Jesus promised you anything on this earth.
Comfort, like that's like comfort is what we're after now. Like, what?
Right. That's the goal. Just make sure I got that brand new couch from Value City Furniture.
Right. Yeah.
It's got a recliner on it.
Right. And meanwhile, every spiritual person has been through some shit. You're gonna be the one that's different.
Right. Yep. I'm the different. I'm special.
Right. I'm special, but my little bus I used to drive.
Right.
But so
it's like that though.
Yeah. It's going to get wild out there, and it's going to get confusing. It's going to get confusing for a lot of people. Like Chad, like you said, it's going to get better before it's going to get worse before it ever gets better.
Right.
There's a lot of, I don't know who if you guys are, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Revelation, but there's a lot of crazy crap that is said to happen. Yeah. And I don't want to be here when it happens, but
I do.
Yeah.
Yes. And the reason is because it is my personal belief to long for death, long for the promise that Jesus gives you, long for it, pray for it, be ready for it. For me, it is all about what can I do for God today? And what God wants me to do for him today is to live. And what God wants me to do for him is be prepared to die. And so why I want it to be today, I take everybody today, is because I want that promise. I believe that I am doing what I can to make my heart as best as possible. It ain't gonna get a whole lot better,
right.
And I have children. I want the embrace of God to come as soon as possible. I long for Revelations to just get the fuck over with.
Right.
Because we get 1,000 years of peace after that.
Well,
and I'm ready.
The other thing too is like I kind of, I don't know. It's funny, like there's all this talk about like the greatest generation, and I like, no doubt, like shout out to the people who like they thought they were going and fighting like the evil of the world.
They did fight Nazis. I mean,
and they fought. Yeah. But I'm saying like they thought they were. Yeah, I mean they did that, but that.
Greatest generation, for what it's worth, toughest generation.
Yeah, right. For what it's worth, a lot of the stuff about like a lot of those different things like wasn't learned until after like the war was over, and like we went over there and like, oh shit, there's a whole like death camp over here. What?
Right.
No, like there was some other stuff, some financial interests and other things that were involved in a lot of that. So like let's tell like it really is. Like, there's a lot of similarities between the old wars that we think are the righteous wars and the new wars. It's that like the Who song, you know. Welcome to the new boss, same as the old boss, you know, like it ain't nothing new. But what I'll say is, like, for whatever credit that generation deserves for the bravery and the like going through the depression and the sacrifice that went through all that stuff, no shade on that,
right?
But it's hard for me to overlook the pussification of people that has happened in the decades since, where there's like this, I don't know, it's wild. It's weird how there's like an entitlement mentality, and it starts there. It starts with this, we did this shit, so therefore, like, we, you know, Social Security, like, that's my money, it's in there, I put it in. Like, all right, listen, no offense, but like, how retarded are you that you think that you put some money, you gave some money to the government, and that they're going to give it back to you, and they're not going to steal it and do all kind of bullshit with it? Like, really? Like,
You're right.
I mean, come on now. Like, what?
I don't understand the how anyone could know history and think that they're on the up and up this time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a meme that I put out that says, "Why do I question government?" And says, I read.
Because
it's that simple.
That's why they're trying to destroy all the books now.
Right. Yeah.
They're burning the books in a different way now. They just
why libertarians hate roads, right?
Yeah. Right.
So have you heard though any one of my best friends, Michael, who's also does a lot of our tech stuff. He just got married last weekend, had a wonderful conversation with a libertarian who is very left libertarian, and had a long conversation. And one of the beauties was he didn't come with, you know, the roads. He's going back to slavery. How do you solve slavery with anarchy? And I'm like, slavery was created by the government. But
right,
you know,
I mean, yeah, you don't tell people, hey, you can't defend yourselves. Now you're a slave. Like that's
right.
Yeah.
It's
but have you had some good pushback from people that aren't the roads? Have you heard something that's good?
That's a good one. What's your top 3 best arguments against anarchy or against libertarianism?
Oh gosh, top 3. One would, I mean, okay, if we're taking roads out of it, I'm shocked.
It's really that mind numbing, isn't it? Like it's that simplistic, or that they just always go there.
Always go there. I'm shocked at the amount of times it comes up, and I'm like, are you serious? I would say let's take roads and expand it, and infrastructure in general. There just can't be infrastructure, period, without government. And it's like, I mean, there's I can't remember where I found the story. There's plenty of examples of people building their own roads and building their own infrastructure without the government's help before we became as big as we are. I believe Iowa built one of their main highways by themselves without government's help.
I was going to say, outside of interstates, a lot of the roads and highways that we drive on now that are like the government roads were already roads before, and then they just took them over and then like paved them and all this stuff. But it was
did they pave them?
Well, yeah, but it was like trade routes that people went on horse and buggy or horseback or whatever, or they walked them. Like Jesus went. They went from like Damascus to Bethlehem or whatever, like, you know what I mean? Like all these different trips that were taken, and there was like caravans of people on camels and horses and donkeys and foot.
Yeah, Paul was all over the dang place.
This stuff without roads. There was no roads.
It's amazing how they did that, isn't it?
They got
crazy.
Places.
So infrastructure,
they didn't even have cars.
No,
roads.
Was it a magic genie that transported them? No, they found a way to get from point A to point B. without these roads. Number two would have to be that, legalizing drugs would just create this crazy, awful society where everybody's dying of ODing and just degeneracy everywhere. I hear that a lot too. That's probably number two.
Wait. So this is another one of those examples that I try to point out to people. Every time they bring up one of those examples, I'm like, oh, you mean so like what we have right now under the state?
Right.
There's tons of people strung out on the streets and they're dying. And nobody cares about them.
And a lot of the time, the state is giving them the drugs.
Right. Build crack better.
Exactly.
Come on now.
Exactly. Oh my God. Yes.
It blows me away. It's like, that's actually what's going on right now. It'd actually be a lot better if we did. But so that's number two. Number three, pushback I get is schools. Just like, and again, what's happening now? People think that schools will go to crap if the state's not running them. And I'm like, the schools are already crap.
Because the state's running them. They were better before the Department of Education existed and before the government started to get involved in them. Like it's funny that you say that because my wife just started a new school this fall. It's this concept.
She's a teacher
it's called micro schooling. Like she left her job. She's been a teacher for 25 years and she left that job and started this new school where she basically homeschools other people's kids.
Awesome.
And it's kind of like we're returning, but in this era of technology, but we're returning to like the Little House on the Prairie,
right,
the town school that is run by like one of the moms or whatever, and everybody's just their kids go over there and she like teaches them stuff, but it's not, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just like you learn the stuff that you need to learn, and there's not all that other BS. There's not like, I don't know, all the other thing too that's better about this setup that she has is each of these kids, they're kind of on their own path and they move at their own rate. And you don't have this thing where you have 30 kids in a classroom and you're teaching to the middle third so that the kids who are really smart are like, what the hell am I doing here? And they're bored. And so they're acting out. They're doing stupid shit unless they're really, really like docile and like domesticated where they're like afraid to do anything out of the ordinary. A lot of really smart people get in a lot of trouble in school. And a lot of really dumb people get in a lot of trouble at school too. because they're like, I can't keep up with this shit. I have no idea what you're talking about. And they're just like, it's okay. You get a D, you pass. You get to go to third grade now. So like, it's crazy how, I don't know, we just keep revisiting these same cycles. Mark Twain was right. History may not repeat itself, but it sure as hell does rhyme.
Yep.
So what solutions would you have to those three things? What would your solutions to infrastructure, to the schools, and what was number two again?
Drugs.
The drug thing.
And drugs. What would be your solution to each of those?
Oh gosh, putting me in charge. I don't know if we want to do that. My solution, I mean, look, we're more than capable of coming together as communities in a small, maybe it is government, but it's way smaller. Like my county can probably come together and get everything done that the state of Ohio claims to be doing for us. We could probably do a much better job of that. Drugs, I think you just gotta, again, I think they should all be legal, despite the fact that I'm a former addict and I don't think anyone should really be doing them, but I don't think we should be punishing people and throwing them in jail for having a bag on them of whatever. I think that's stupid. And I think people just need to see the evidence that society doesn't go down to the tubes if that's the case. And then schools, I love that what your wife is doing, Chad. That's I think that's a perfect solution. Tighten them up. Don't have 30 kids in class, and so we all have to move at the speed of the slowest kid, and have more, because you'd have more competition. You'd have more selection. If the schools were smaller, you'd have it, and the state wasn't running them. You have actual competition, and you can vet these places you want to send your kid, and they're not locked in by geography to where they have to. I've never heard a good argument from anyone why a kid who lives in a certain geography has to go to attend a crappy school. I've never heard a good argument for why he has to do that.
Amen. So to start wrapping up, where would I know that you have your Twitter and you're getting ready to set up a website for a possible move forward with a podcast.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you'd like to? And your Twitter link is down below. Is there anything else you'd like to push or mention while you're here?
Not really. Men of Order, shout out to you guys for giving me this opportunity. And I'm also at if anyone is part of Not the Bee, I'm also at Not the Bee at the same Twitter handle.
Okay.
As well.
Cool.
Wait, that's you're like a contributor there, or?
Oh, no, just that I post content there.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
All right.
Very cool.
That's very cool.
I got a question for you guys because I heard a lot of Dave Smith, Spike Cohen talk. All right. Why Dave Smith? Why Spike Cohen?
Okay. I'll go with Spike first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spike, we've interviewed Spike, and I like Dave Smith, and I like Dave Smith for a variety of reasons. The reason I like Spike better is because Spike doesn't have the temperament that Dave does. I like Dave. Dave gets mad. Dave loses his shit, and Spike has a better, and he's witty, and he can sting you and you not even notice.
Yeah.
So I like that. And also with Spike, he is much more rooted in voluntarism. He is much more of, and I get that Dave is well read. I get all of that stuff. And I like, again, I would vote for either one of them.
Sure.
If and to get me to vote, that so far, that's the two people the LP has to put up.
Okay.
There ain't anybody else I'm going to go vote for. I might enjoy, and unless they get Vermin Supreme in there, which isn't going to happen. But if that happened, I would do it just so that I voted for Vermin. It has nothing to do with anything to do with shit, but that's just funny. But on real policies, I think that Spike, number one, he has the right connections. Seeing him, a lot, as well as Olivia, one of our friends, on Kennedy all the time, over and over and over again, knocking it out of the fucking park. And that doesn't mean that like Dave on on Rogan, for instance, doesn't hit a bunch out of the park too. He does.
He's on Kennedy a lot too, and does well there too. Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know. Spike makes me want to get up and down and jump. And I think Spike also because a lot of what you're talking about with the localization, with bringing it to the county level, we have to take credit for that. That was started by Adam Kokesh in the Kokesh campaign. Localization became a thing. Now, that doesn't mean that other people did not talk about it. Rothbard talks about it. There's a bunch of other people. But as a focal point of the campaign, our campaign with Kokesh was the peaceful dissolution of the federal government, returning power to the states. We started that shit, and the first person that I heard mimic it say he was right about that is Spike Cohen.
Yeah. So and I think the difference there was in the Libertarian Party before that. I think you had a lot of people who were very bought into the idea of trying to win local elections to get libertarians, for ballot access, and for there are tons of reasons to do that, right? Like you have plenty of motivation to try to do well in local races. The more libertarians you have elected to office, the more you get to like pump your numbers and show like, hey, look, we got people elected. Yep. But you start to build that roster, that depth on your bench of like people who can rise up into some of those other races. But I think one of the duplicity that I found was you had that, which was like this approach to like politics and how you build the structure and the roster of a political party. And then on the other hand, you had the national, we've got to be like, talk about who the president's going to be. We got to talk about all this national politics and all that stuff. And I get it. That's all fine. But no one ever really talked about like the only reason we run a national campaign is to point out the fact that the national structure, the federalism is a mistake in the first place. It's not even what the founders envisioned. Like the founders, they created a loose federation of states that all had their own way of doing things, their own cultures, their own approaches to things. And the larger federation was supposed to be like very, very minimal.
Yep.
and only to like make sure that like among the states they weren't like fucking each other over. It wasn't supposed to be this like somebody in Washington D.C. tells everybody what to do, and the ones who get in lockstep get goodies handed to them, and the ones who don't get the shaft.
Yep.
And that's
100%.
what it's become. It has become a funnel of, because I remember back when Obama was president, and there was some talk about people like, oh, we're going to secede from the Union. Texas was going to secede and all that stuff. And I remember somebody put out this big, and they like, you know, the left loved talking shit like this. It's like, ha ha ha. Okay, you get no more federal highway money. You get no more federal this. You get no more Social Security. You get no, you know, they start, and then it's like, oh, well, shit, you know, that I don't like them, but they got a point. You know, you can't be, you know, in daddy's back pocket and then tell daddy go fuck himself because you want to do what you want to do. You either got to fend for yourself or you got to do what daddy tells you to do.
Yep.
Because daddy's paying all your bills.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So like it's because I'm a daddy. I got kids. This is a conversation I have all the time.
I do have to do one quick and then I'll let you get back to your point, Chad.
I was done.
Sure. Well, you didn't say if you would rather have Spike or all that.
Spike or Dave.
I like them both. I like them both, honestly. And I think Dave has more like name recognition and more. He's got more. He does have a more forceful personality, and he's really hard on like the anti-war stuff and everything. But I'm kind of with Marcus. Like I almost feel like to appeal to more of the left libertarians to give somewhat of a bone, I guess, so to speak. It would be better to have him at the top of he has to at least be on the ticket. It's got to be Dave and him. It would be interesting though, like to do that where you have like anyway,
I'm right there with you guys. I'd vote for either one of them, but I think Dave.
There's a lot of push for Maj to you know to have a you know because he brings a different element to it.
He does. I mean, then if you want to throw Larry Elder in the mix as well, but
you mean Larry Sharp?
Sharp, that's what I meant. Yep.
Yeah, Larry Elder's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, whole different ballgame.
Don't want Larry Elder.
No, Larry Sharp. That's who I meant. But I'd vote for Spike or Dave. Dave, I think, would bring more eyes to the party. But I think Spike would probably overall make the better candidate, personally.
Yeah, agreed.
Me too.
So I do want to do some pushback. Because one of the things that I learned from Marcus Rees Evans, who's a friend of ours, who is the leader of CalExit, and is that if California would secede from the union, they would pay less money to the federal government and their economy would become less socialist. You heard me right. California would be less socialist if they did not pay money to the federal government. They would become more conservative than they are. And that is because they would now be flush with money. So they're not in the back pocket. Now, there are states that are. Indiana is one of them that are in the pocket of the federal government for sure. But in California's case and in Texas's case, and I believe it's New York is the third one, they would actually have a net benefit to the state.
Oh, yeah. No,
to be on their own.
I think they certainly would. The problem that I see is when you take people are stupid. And so when you say we're going to take away your Social Security and we're going to take away your highway funds and we're going to take away this from the Department of Education, we're going to take away this from Medicare or whatever, you know, they're like, oh my God, we're going to lose all this stuff. I mean, think about every time that this shit happens when they say like, they don't even do budget cuts. All that shit is bullshit too. They do this baseline budgeting and all they do is they cut the rate of increase in spending. Right. And they say like, they're slashing our budget. Like your budget went from 1 trillion to 1.2 trillion instead of to 1.35 trillion. That's not, they didn't slash your budget. They just if I had that type of raise reduction,
Right.
I would be ecstatic because I went like 4
Who
years
wouldn't be?
without getting a raise
Right.
because like the economy was shit. And like I'm work for a privately owned company. Like I don't
Right.
work for shareholders or anything like that. Like this is, we gotta, if we don't sell shit, there ain't shit. And so like we don't have money to give raises. So we, you know, you can want a raise in one hand, you can shit in the other one and see which one fills up first. I promise you, it ain't going to be the one that wants a raise in it.
Right.
So anyway, that's just how, that's the one my dad told me that one. He's like, you can want in one hand, you can shit in the other one, see which one fills up first. I'm like, damn, Dad. Like,
I'm stealing that one.
yeah, oh, that's an old school. That's 40 plus years old. That one he's told me, and I'm sure it was 40 plus years old when it was told to him. But yeah, it's I think you're right that probably there's a net benefit. But what if that net benefit is, let's say their annual budget is like $200 billion. And this is like a $2 billion difference. They net benefit $2 billion. All anybody's going to talk about is the fact that they are giving away $198 billion of federal money if they secede.
I know.
And that's going to be the headline, and that everybody's going to shit themselves. And so it doesn't matter that there's a net benefit because people are retarded. And the people who want to have power over people will continue to tell them things that will make their retarded minds pacified and happy.
And just so everybody knows, when he says retarded, he's quoting Osho. He said democracy is
French.
Osho,
the French term for to be late is en retard. And so that's what I'm using.
Osho, whose name is Rajneesh, but Osho said, and he was kind of a Buddhist Hindu. But anyway, neat dude, go look him up. Anyway, he said democracy is
government of the people, for the people, by the people. But the
people are retarded.
So it's government by the retarded, of the retarded, for the retarded.
Right.
And that's what it is. We're all retarded. I am too. So.
For sure. I stare at my finger.
Sure.
Anyway. So Jeremiah, I hope this was everything you hoped it would be.
I loved it. This was awesome.
So for everybody that has made it this far, go check out his Twitter page. Follow him. He needs more followers. We need to get him up in followers. So everybody who is watching this, go check out Anatomy of the Church and State. What's the ad again, Jeremiah?
At Jesus and Liberty. At Jesus.
Yeah,
and Liberty.
at Jesus and Liberty. Yep. It's in the I sent it out in a tweet earlier when we went live, so it's awesome. It's on there, so you can follow him there. Yep.
And then I just purchased Brian Sharp's book, How to Dominate Twitter, so hopefully that'll help as well.
Let's go. That's good stuff. All right.
Get the Patriot Report too.
I saw all of his YouTube that he did for the Patriot.
Oh, you did, yeah. So you kind of read it already then, but it's still worth having a copy to be able to refer to.
I learned so
really
much.
good.
I'm still learning. I love learning, and so like discovering you guys, it just like opened up a wealth of resources for me to read. I'm like, I'm gonna be busy forever.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
That's good.
Tom Woods has this thing that he says where he's like, what if your kids went to school and the school was owned by Walmart, and along all the walls were all the pictures of all the past CEOs of Walmart, and you sang songs and you read prayers and you said, you put your hand on your heart and you pledged allegiance to Walmart, and you did all these things that were like about how great Walmart is. Like, what would you think about that? Would you think like, hey, maybe Walmart's trying to brainwash our kids?
Right.
Well, read the Patriot Report. And then you see, like, that's exactly what this is.
Exactly what happened.
Walmart is a bunch of people that don't wish to name themselves, and they wish to stay behind the curtain and be hidden because they're, I really want to go. I want to find this thing because I heard somebody refer to it. I haven't seen it, but there's somebody who said that the Wizard of Oz is actually about like the Fed.
Really? Silver.
Like the yellow brick road and all that stuff, and the man behind the curtain and all like it's all this, and it's like I was like
Emerald City.
I gotta read, the Emerald City. I gotta read this stuff. I really need. I gotta go find this thing that is. I just reminded myself of that, so I'm gonna go look it up, and I will share that whenever I find it.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, so Jeremiah, last words to you. What would you like to say to our audience?
You know, Christianity and spirituality and liberty can coexist. Shout out to my wife. Sorry, I meant to shout her out. She's watching. And then thank you guys for having me, and thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm truly blessed.
Well,
Yeah,
thanks again.
We're blessed that you made it out of, you know, the place where you were and I don't say that lightly, because that's I may not know, like I said, specifically, you know, but I have an idea, and it really kicks ass that you found a way out of that, and that God gave you you know, a window into your purpose so that you could start living it.
For sure. I didn't see it. Do you guys want to hear real quick what I saw as I was?
Oh,
So
yeah.
I didn't get the white light. What I remember from the experience is I was in a place with people I knew, but I don't know who, and they were talking about me, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. And this conversation went on for what seemed like forever, and then I was awake. It was bizarre.
I've heard similar things.
That's wild.
Awesome. And I'm glad that he returned you to us
for sure.
But remember that means you've got a purpose. You got
Yes.
some shit to do, brother.
For sure. For sure.
The yoke is what is it? The yoke is sweet and the burden is light. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels very heavy. But
I'll get to it right after the Netflix series I'm about to
now you have the shoulder to carry it.
Right on. Well, everybody, just make sure to stay free.
Stay free.
Peace, y'all.